Well, hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and hope you're lucky enough to be doing it too. I'm Bushka on Blitz, and this is the Chieftain T95. It's not a T95, and it is definitely brand spanking new to Blitz. I'm going to go through a review on this tank. If you're new to the channel, I do an awful lot of these. These are reviews, in-depth look at particular tanks. I do streams, I do giggles, I do jiggles, I do all kinds of stuff. But this one in particular is important because there's a whole big event coming up for Blitz, and this is one of the tanks you could possibly get. And it's a tank that's got a lot of history, a lot of chutzpah around it. People are really interested in this tank, and not just because it's a very good tank in the PC variant of the game, but because it's got a lot of real-life history behind it. Now, what can I talk about with this tank that would explain away how I feel about it? I did a lot of work getting a good win rate in this tank on the Asia server. I played it on the NA server, and I played it in a stream. Now, it wasn't a really fair indication of the way the tank works because I played it in a counting stream. And anyone who's watched those counting streams will know that you just can't take them seriously. It's basically we get 4 or 5 people on a red team who just tunnel the crap out of me and really stymie any chance for the tank to perform in a natural environment. And I understood this, and I didn't really worry too much about that because when I started playing it on the NA server, I had a couple of really good games in it, and then I did it in the live stream and it sucked. And you can see the way I'm playing it right here is very conservative and very thoughtful, and just absolutely, it's a finesse tank. It's not a big stock Russian heavy. It's not a tank with a 120mm gun. It's got a 90mm gun on a tier 8 heavy. I mean, it's very, very different to most of the tier 8 heavies you've ever driven. And I went and grabbed it and drove it on the Asia server, and I wanted to drive a fair chunk of games to get a handle on it. And I feel like I've really, really got across the game. And I ran it for 45 games on Asia, which is a lot to play in one day for me on one tank when it's first released. And I had a really good win rate in it, 77%, mostly solo. I had about 15 games in there with my good mate Rich MP, and 1850 average damage, which is fairly reasonable. But I felt like I played my butt off to get those numbers. Because this is the issue with this tank. You have a crazy odd armor profile. You've got parts of it that look like they're really, really red, but there's little green spots available, i.e. the upper glacis. You've got a lower glacis that's just pennable by literally everything. This is like with 195mm of pen on your standard rounds on a 59, and then I think 250 on your promo rounds. And you can see parts of it are like 500mm, and then you get this hatch that looks HE pennable, but it's actually not HE pennable. It can be splashed, but unless you've got a whole lot of HE, you're not going straight through it, unless it's angled up slightly on the side. And I don't know if this is, like, that's a huge problem, that hatch. If you do a standard APCR round, it's going straight through that hatch, no problems whatsoever. And yet, modeling wise, it's just primary armor. It's only 50mm of primary armor. It doesn't look like spaced armor. There is no spaced armor there, yet you cannot go through it very, very easily with HE. So the armor profile is a little bit of a mystery. Hull down, it's mostly bloody red. It's red as a tomato. It's got a fantastic turret, apart from this huge, monstrous hatch, which again, you can take out easily with AP or APCR. It's a full roll. Like, it's just so easy to pen that hatch. And it's really, really odd that you have this wonderful turret, yet it's got this huge, enormous weak, like, that's the worst turret weak point you're going to find anywhere. It's 50mm of armor. Like, it's crap. So what does that mean about the tank? And why do I still think it's really, really good? Well, really good anyway. It means that you've got to be incredibly careful. And you've got to use every positive that the game gives you in this tank to be successful. And you've got to use the turret as situational armor, and situational armor only. And you've got to move back and forward so that the turret is visible for very, very short periods of time, because otherwise the turret will get absolutely wrecked. And you're going to see one thing that this tank absolutely excels at is aim time. And that's really important. At 2.8 second aim time, even with 0.330 dispersion, means you can just snapshot phenomenally well. But if you're not careful and you give people too long looking at that massive, big, ugly weak point, you're going to get absolutely cracked. And that's me bouncing an Object 704, because the turret itself is really, really, really strong. It can bounce anything. But the weak point is incredibly, incredibly weak. And if people just wise up and shoot AP at it, you can get in all kinds of trouble. Now, this traditionally is an incredibly strong part of a hull down tank's game. This is the top of Middleburg. It's where you come if you've got 10 degrees of gun depression, which this thing has, and you've got a really, really good aim time and everything else, but it only takes 1 second of overplaying your hand and you lose all your hit points, because that turret, while being incredibly strong, has a machine gun hatch on top that is incredibly weak. And this is why I think this tank will be an utter and abject failure for those people who just like a tier 8 heavy, like an IS-3 Defender or an IS-5 or an IS-6 or even a T-34 or an IS-2SH or a Glacial. Stuff that is all big and bloody derpy in terms of gun handling and precision on the move firing. Because that's what this tank is about. Now, I got in huge trouble with a lot of people when I said that the Carnarvon is fantastic, and it is fantastic. Look at how good this gun is here. Watch the aim time here. Just sneaking out, moving back and forward, pulling back. That is something you can't do in an IS-3 Defender. Not reliably anyway. And the thing I got in trouble with for the Carnarvon is, I think the Carnarvon, well, it's my favourite tier 8 heavy, right? It's gorgeous, it's glorious, it does amazing things. It fires on the move like a laser beam. It can go hull down and really tempt and destroy people with a trollish turret. And it's got 10 degrees of gun depression, and it's really mobile for a heavy and all that. But I play these tanks with a lot of craft. And I've played like 45,000 games of Blitz, maybe a bit more. And I've played with really, really good players, and I've done a lot of videos, and I know all the stats on these tanks, and I have to think about these things all the time. And I played nearly 50 battles in this tank today, and I couldn't play anymore, and I had to stop because, quite honestly, it was quite a strain playing it. You can see how much time I'm spending looking around and working. It's a constant update, head on the swivel kind of tank. And if you are good enough to use a situational armor profile and pick your spots as to when you're going to push and hit point trade, then you can be really, really successful in it. Really successful. Like, I usually had games that were 2+ K or 1000. Like, it was either, you know, holding the line, hull down, being really, really dodgy and canny, and moving around and using the good traverse numbers and the good mobility. Like, it does 40 kilometers an hour forward and 20 kilometers an hour back. There's a reason why this is a long review, by the way, because I feel like there's a lot of context for this tank, and that context is important. And if you are just looking for a grading out of 10, then you've come to the wrong place, because I feel like this tank, and I'm going to show you the games too to illustrate this. Like, I'm going to show you situations. You've seen this game where I've just worked this ridgeline, like ferociously worked this ridgeline, constantly back and forward, constantly watching my flanks, and like, watch this. I'm brawling 2 tanks. I'm in a really crappy situation here, and yet I can use the traverse of the tank, despite the fact, to just jerk out and pull bounces out of these tanks and still brawl. And it's got, and then I'm going to adjust my angle again quickly up and just drag this Tiger P, and then I'm going to go and face hug, because one thing this tank can actually do is face hug, because the upper glacis is trollish, but it's pretty mobile. Like, the traverse isn't so bad, And the back speed of 20 kilometers an hour comes in really handy. Like, watch how important the reverse is on this particular little kettle of fish. It's wonderful, like, ripper. The pen can be an issue too. The pen is not amazing. 202 millimeters a pen on your AP rounds and 238 in your APCR means E75s and tanks like that are right off the board. Like, you're not doing them frontally whatsoever. And T54s, I mean, you can see, watch how much I don't stop moving and how I kind of jerk back, even with this ping. This ping is horrific. I'm going 19, 20 kilometers an hour backwards, no worries. I'm dragging this T54 backwards and forwards. I've pushed up really aggressively here, but I'm completely hull down. And there are two rules with this tank. One is never, ever, 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 ever stop moving when you are hull down. Like, never. It will absolutely crucify you. If you sit still, you will take a full AP roll through that hatch every single damn time. It is a horrible armor profile for doing that. Secondly, you are not even close or remotely like a frontline heavy. Do not think that you can go up and hit point trade effectively with an IS-3 Defender or an IS-3 or an IS-2 SH or a T-34 or a T-28 Proto or an AT-15 or anything. If you get caught in the front line, you will cop every single bit of damage that you deserve because your lower glacis cannot possibly be angled enough to be effective at bouncing shots, and your sides are literally 80 millimeters of unfriendly steel. You will get wrecked. Do not do it. Do not let people talk you into it. Do not play it like a clown. It is a finesse rapier-like weapon. It is the fencer's foil. It is the assassin's stiletto. It is 100% not the hammer and the sickle that is your typical Russian medium, or Russian heavy, or medium, you know, sometimes. You are going to see in all these games just how much craft and technique I have to put into making this tank successful. Something else that you're going to see me do here is angle up all the time because the upper glacis is pretty strong, but also try and keep stuff like that tent, like that's a great thing to have in front of you, the magic tent that you can fire through, because it means that they can't really focus on weak points. They can just point to generic things. And I also want to emphasize something. Aim time is so much more important than dispersion when you're playing a tank like this. Having a decent dispersion is good, but having the aim time to be able to reliably take shots, and it's one of the reasons I think that I find the Carnarvon to be such a magical tank, is because the aim time is so stupidly low with a gun that is so emphatically accurate that you can hit all kinds of shots. And again, even though I am a heavy tank and that is a T-34, I am giving no one free hit point trades. I am behind a rock on one side and still constantly looking to make sure this Tiger 2 on my right is not available for hitting me. And I'm using the gun depression and constantly farming damage up like this. Like, this is how you play this tank. And this is why I think it's going to be an abject failure for those guys who just like to think that they're going to buy a premium tank and it is going to just work out of the box. It won't work for you. It really, really is a finesse tank. So are you listening? If you like the T-34 as a hull-down tank, if you like the T-29 as a hull-down tank, if you like the T-32 as a hull-down tank, if you like the ST-1 as a hull-down tank, this is not like those tanks. This does not hull down like that. It does not even hull down like the M103. It hulls down like a frightened mouse that also happens to get a lot of bounces because it's scurrying about, afraid that if it sits still for even 1 second, the cat is going to gobble it up with absolute ease. And that's kind of why I like playing it, because it's a tremendous challenge to be successful with a tank like this in a game like Blitz, where you've got huge big hit skins outlining hit me here. Now you're going to see how many bounces I get in this tank. You've looked at the armor profile, right? And it should come as no surprise then that you can be penned everywhere, yet it's going to come as a huge surprise that I keep getting lots of bounces in this tank. And the reason is you just don't stop moving. And not everyone has the aim time of this tank, and not everyone has the dispersion of this tank, and that means that if you don't sit still, there's a bloody good chance that they're going to miss you. That's basically how I look at it. And I also 100%, you miss all the shots you don't attempt. So if you see me going for crazy snapshots in this tank, it's because sometimes you'll actually get them. You know, that's just how it is. So we're here on the flank on Port Bay, and I'm going to show you two games now. I think I've soliloquized and given you a complete, you know, rundown on why I think the tank is great and why I think it's going to kind of suck for most people. But anyway, that's the context of it. Now let me show you how I play it. And the way to beat this tank is basically to hit point trade with it. If you have enough hit points, make good hit point trades with it and you'll beat it every time. Like, it's not like an IS-3 Defender or an IS-5 where you may just get out-muscled by the armor profile. The lower glacis can't be hidden. Like, if you push on this tank, you're penning this tank. And you can see I've gone out and I've muscled the mediums, because that is another key for this tank. You can muscle medium tanks up by going hull down at key choke points, and that'll really do the business for you. And the gun is lovely. 0.33 dispersion, which is the bells and whistles, all the running all the good stuff, doesn't do the gun justice, because as I mentioned before, aim time is a lot more important with a tank like this than dispersion. Once you get to a certain level, like the Carnarvon's aim time is 2.9 seconds. This thing can get to 2.8 seconds. The big key with the Carnarvon, obviously, is that it's got 0.293 dispersion versus 0.330 dispersion. Now, even in this situation where it's 3-on-3 and I've been conserving hit points and I've got 1,000 hit points left, I'm still trying to be as frugal as absolutely possible, because, like, look at that. That just went straight through the hatch. Again, 400 alpha from that IS-3 Defender. And, I mean, look at that. Look at that Tiger P. He's a much tougher pen now. But if you're moving, those tanks, they just don't have the accuracy on the weapons that you do, and they don't have the aim time that you do, and you can actually do pretty well. And you can see we've got Nick from Premo here as well. I was lucky enough to have him in this game, because if I didn't have him in this game, this was a guaranteed loss. But I'll tell you that for nothing. And I'm going to show you one more game after this too, where I actually just, I don't know how I do. Anyway, I'll show you this game. This is good. I had lots of games like this, lots of 3K hull down games where I just kind of moved around the battle, using a lot of craft, like watching for people's reloads, peeka booming, being really jiggy backwards and forwards, doing all that kind of stuff. And yet, I seriously cannot recommend this tank to the player base at large. I did a video, I released it last night, but it's been on Patreon for like over a week. I did a video on the RU-251 where I went really, really deep and played erotically reckless tanking. And a lot of people will get upset at that. But I had a huge caveat in that, in saying, look, I don't expect, like, look at this shot. Like, when you need it to happen, aim time really helps. I did a big caveat with that, saying, please, and I guess I keep saying this because I worry that people are going to go and see these games, see the win rate, and say, hey, it's an amazing tank, I'm going to go buy it and be really, really successful. And it's just not that tank. But if you are good enough to take advantage of what it offers, which is a really strong situational armor profile, excellent mobility, 10 degrees of gun depression, and a fantastic aim time, well then, you're going to love the tank. And I can't be fairer than that, can I? Like, I think that covers all bases. If you're good enough for the tank, you'll like it. It's not OP. Like an IS-3 Defender is just OP as all hell. Now this is a tier 9 game, and you're going to see I push for the hills. I really want to get to that flank and go hull down. And I'm going to get stuck in a brawling situation with an IS-6. Now the problem you have with a tank like the IS-6 is your pen is actually pretty bad. Your pen's really bad for a tank like that. 202mm of pen on an IS-6 is not going to guarantee you a pen all the time unless you can hit the weak points. And I do hit the weak points, but I end up paying for it because I'm actually quite keen to clear him, as I'm not sure that I'm not going to get pushed on and end up with a 2-on-1 situation in which I really, really can't deal. And watch, I mean, this tank, honestly, the gun is gorgeous. I try and reset camo back here to a degree, but then I just go bugger it. I've got to get to this hull down spot before he does. And that's exactly what we do. We get up to the hull down spot. Now I'm going to have to try to out hit point trade him here because there's just no way around it. I'm going to have to hit point trade, and you can see me moving backwards and forwards, but he just goes straight through that hatch. Like, aims up, goes through the hatch. Not much I can do with it. That's all there is to it. He's got 1,470 hit points. I've got 1,500, and we're basically going to fight it out. And he's just going to keep, and I'm trying to move. I'm actually turning the turret all the way to the right. Like, it's just all there is to it. But he's a tough tank to pen, and he's pretty mobile, and he's an IS-6. Like, it's a good tank for a reason. And you can see now we're playing silly buggers, backing up around the thing, and this is where that 20 kilometers an hour of reverse comes in really, really handy. And I'm really worried about getting pushed on here. So I just want to get up there and get as many shots in, and in the end, I just decide I've got to clear this guy. So we just push down, and we simply out-trade him right now, because we've got better DPM than him, and it gives us the ability to clear him. We've got to clear this flank. We're going to take another shot. We decide we'll just accept that. We bunch the adrenaline, and we clear him just before his reload pops up. 1,470 hit points was his loadout. There's the one that I was expecting to be here, a whole lot quicker, and I think that's a T54 lightweight, that's right. And he just doesn't push up. Thank God he didn't push up. So now, we won the hit point trade by, I don't know, 352 hit points, which wasn't enough, and it's left us in a tough spot. But we've got that corner. So we've cleared the IS-6, we've got the corner, we now own this. There's 3 tanks left versus 5, and I've got a T95 on my right, who is going to be incredibly important in what's to come. Like, there's no way around it. Without that T95, I am absolutely screwed. And looking at it now, and this is one of the great things about watching video back, I think that might be one of the reasons that 54 lightweight just simply didn't push across, was the 95 was in. Now I'm looking for that prototype, the T28 Proto or the 54 will do. There we go, we clear him with our 4-on-3, happy days. But there's a big hit point, 152 down there. I'm looking for that 54. Oh, hang on, I don't have a choice here. I've got to hope the 95 can put some shots into that 152, so I'm going to try and track him. I'm still using APCR, so get the track, go back to AP, and I'm just jiggling and giggling for all I'm worth. Just managed to get across there in time to get the bounce, and now we're going to push past him. We're just pushing past him. We've got no chance, no choice here. We cannot muck around. We've got to go because there are tanks everywhere that are after me, and there we go. We're now on 34 hit points in real strife, but I'm hoping that that T95 can get rid of that guy, or at least stop him from pushing up on me. We get another one into the 152. How good's the gun handling? Like, this is intense, high pressure stuff. There is no more room for errors. We have 2 minutes 48 left. We have 4 tanks on 3. They have a freaking lot of hit points to get through, and I've got to get all the shots and hope they hit. And there you go, that turret again, working wonders. We've got tanks all over us, and the only thing stopping us from getting absolutely wrecked is that 95. God bless him. Moshi Dayan T95. God bless you, and the ship you sail upon, my friend, because without you, that 152 would have come and eaten my lunch. Now here's my opportunity. The 152's just killed the IS-3, means I can push up and get a shot into the 54. The 152 is going to want to push up. He thinks I'm on a reload. He doesn't know the reload of this tank. I'm not saying that he did a bad thing there, because he literally doesn't know the stats of this tank. So fair enough. He thought I may well have been on a reload. There was an opportunity there to come across and nut me. But I'm not a standard heavy. I've got a very, very fast reload, obviously. And at 10.19 seconds, I can do the numbers. Now, I just got to hit that top, that hatch. There's 200. Thanks very much. Backing up. And I'm just going to be jiggling back and forth, trying to keep that E75 interested. I'm going to get another bounce, because obviously we're so far above him that everything now is super red and tough to pen. Like, that's just so much. There are parts of this turret that are 500 millimeters of penetration. He goes for the hatch, hits just below it, bounces with a full round. We come down here. Wow. What a game. That's using every last bit of the tank and all the craft I could think of, like mobility, reverse speeds, aim time, gun depression. Moshi, you freaking legend. That was, without you, that was an absolute loss. So thanks very much for playing your heart out there, buddy. You really, really helped. And thanks for pushing up in the T95, even though I know you were going about 15 kilometers an hour to get there. That is the Chieftain T95. That is an absolute in-depth review. I cannot go any deeper on that bloody thing without a pair of forceps and a stethoscope. It's a great tank. It is absolutely not for the beginners. It is going to not be a massive carry tank. It feels like second line support or situational front line. But if you push up and hit point trade in this tank, you deserve everything you get coming to you, because there are a lot of tanks out there that have every bit as much DPM as you, like easily. And there are a lot of tanks out there that can decimate that hatch if you keep sticking it up and sitting still. And if you can't sit still and can't like just hold and reliably aim like a T34 or something without worrying about someone smashing through your hatch, then you can't really claim to be a frontline heavy. So it feels like a heavium, it looks like a heavium, it sounds like a heavium, goes quack, it's a duck. Until next time, look after yourselves, boys and girls, and stay safe on the battlefield.